So every year on March 8th, International Women's Day comes around. We see the posts, we hear the stories, but how much do we actually know about where it all came from? Today, we're going to find out. Welcome to the International Women's Day Knowledge Challenge.
So let me ask you straight up, how much do you really know about this day? We're about to go on a quick tour to uncover the real stories behind the celebration. You ready? Let's do this.
Okay, part one, the foundation. You know, to really get a handle on this day, we've got to go right back to the beginning, to its origins and the powerful symbols that give it its identity.
Let's start with the date itself, March 8th. Why that day? Was it just picked out of a hat, or is there a bigger story? What do you think?
Well, the answer is all tangled up in the labor movement. It was like a chain reaction, really. It all kicked off in 1908 with this massive march in New York for just basic rights. That planted the seed for a National Women's Day in the US, which then got people thinking bigger, an International Day. But the key date, March 8th, that comes from a powerful 1917 strike by Russian women demanding bread and peace. And get this, that protest was one of the sparks that actually helped ignite the Russian Revolution. So yeah, this date was forged in protest.
All right, moving on from history to symbols. Every big movement has its colors, right? So what's the one color you should think of when you think of International Women's Day?
It's purple, and that wasn't just a random style choice. It was a statement. Purple was picked because it symbolizes justice and dignity, two of the absolute core ideas in the fight for equality. It's such a simple but really powerful identity for this huge global movement.
Okay, let's move on to Section 2, the Trailblazers. This is where we celebrate some of the incredible people and entire nations that scored these monumental firsts, totally changing the game for what was considered possible.
And our first Trailblazer question is a big one. This person didn't just crack a glass ceiling, she shattered one of the highest ceilings there is in the world of science. Who was the very first woman to win a Nobel Prize?
That would be the one and only, the brilliant Marie Curie, who snagged her first Nobel way back in 1903. But as you can see, she's in some seriously impressive company. Look at these other incredible firsts. We've got New Zealand, the very first country to give women the vote in 1893. We have Indira Gandhi becoming India's first female prime minister. And then there's Valentina Tereshkova from the Soviet Union, who literally left the planet to become the first woman in space. And this is just a tiny snapshot of all the barriers that have been broken.
All right, part three, the framework. So, we've talked about these amazing individual achievements. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the global system that finally gave this movement the official recognition it deserved on the world stage. So, the day was being celebrated for decades, but when did it get that official stamp of approval from the big one, the United Nations? Any ideas what year that happened?
The year was 1975, and that was a major turning point. When the UN officially recognized it, International Women's Day went from a movement rooted in activism to a globally acknowledged day of observance. Its visibility and its impact just exploded.
And that brings us to our final section, decoding CEDAW. We're going to break down a really important acronym here. It represents one of the most powerful legal tools there is in the global fight for gender equality.
So you might have seen this before, CEDAW, especially if you're reading about human rights or international law. But what does it actually mean? This one's a bit tough, I'll admit, but it is so important.
CEDAW stands for the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Now, the main thing to remember is that it's often called the International Bill of Rights for Women. The UN adopted it in 1979, and it basically lays out what discrimination is and sets a whole agenda for countries to follow to get rid of it. It's pretty much the legal backbone for the whole global movement.
So, how did you do on the challenge? We've gone from protests on the streets of New York to the halls of the UN, from the first woman to cast a vote to the first woman to fly in space. All these milestones, they show us just how far we've come. But the journey is definitely not over. Which brings us to one last thought. When we look to the future, what do you think will be the next great first in this story of equality?